Hi, I'm Jason Khalipa, and welcome to the AMRAP Mentality Podcast, a show where we interview interesting people about how they make the most out of every single minute. On today's episode, we have Max Greenfield, phenomenal actor, fitness enthusiast, husband, father, and just all-around great guy. Max dives into a number of different things, including how he got his acting start, how he thought about quitting, how he overcame drugs and alcohol, and how he's now finding balance in his life with his new show, The Neighborhood. Can't wait for you guys to check out this episode and get as much from it as I did. Have a great day. All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the AMRAP Mentality Podcast. I was sitting here talking to a longtime friend and Max Greenfield. Thank you very much.
We've already done two podcasts.
We've already done two podcasts. We were sitting here just I'm so fascinated by Max, and I'm so fascinated by his background that I had to get you on the show because I just think there's so much to dive into. We just kept going on and on and on that we had to start the camera and start the audio eventually, right?
So I mean, how we haven't been doing the audio since
we haven't been.
What are we doing here?
What are we doing? All I know is that we're in Max's
it's Halloween, and this is like usually.
Is this a basement or where are we at?
We're in somewhat
like a
of a
secret
garage.
room?
It used to be a garage, but we covered up the back wall.
I mean, it looks good.
I don't know how legal that is, but this is where the kids will be hanging out for Halloween.
Well, dude, I want to dive into a bunch of stuff from your acting career on New Girl to your newest show, The Neighborhood, which really I want to release this episode because I want people to be able to check it out, people to check out who you are, and then also talk about a little bit of CrossFit, a little bit of fitness, family, and then obviously your business, which is acting, right?
Sure.
I want to dive into those different things. You know, we have this idea about AMRAP mentality, kind of approaching each area in your life like an AMRAP, right? You and I have talked about this before, being present, focused, and I think you're a testament to a guy who has two children, has an acting career, which is a challenging career in itself with all the things to overcome with being around different things, which we'll talk about, the drugs and alcohol and being away from home and different stuff. And I want to talk about how you and your wife manage that, how fitness has played a role, and then what you got going on. Sound good?
I love it.
Dude, so I want to start off because we were diving in to your newest show, The Neighborhood. And perhaps you could describe what The Neighborhood is because I've watched all the episodes and I don't want to do it disservice by trying to explain what it is. Well, how would you summarize your newest show with Cedric the Entertainer, right?
Yeah. It's me, Cedric the Entertainer, a woman, Tashina Arnold, who's fantastic. She was on Martin, and everybody loves Chris. Everybody hates Chris. And Beth Bears from Two Broke Girls. And then these new guys, Marcel Spears and Shion McKinney.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Cast is lights out. And the
brothers are pretty funny.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
And the essential premise of the show is you have this white family from the Midwest who moves into a traditionally black neighborhood. And race definitely plays a part in the show, but it's really about these two families from two totally different places and how their dynamic sort of evolves over the time of them living there.
And so you guys completed your first season. I believe.
No, we're 10 episodes in right now. We just got picked up for 9 more episodes. So I'm sorry. We did 10 episodes. We were gonna do 13, but we got picked up for an extra 9, so we'll do 22.
22. And so perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about how that works. So this show's on is it ABC?
CBS.
CBS. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So it's on CBS. It's on prime time. Like this is a legit. And you had a pilot that came out. Watch the pilot. Then based on that, do they allow more episodes? So how does that work?
Yeah. So the network will read the scripts and they'll say, "We love this. We want to make this. We like the people that are involved on the production side and the writers." And then we'll say, "Let's move forward." They'll cast the show. Put together a cast and then go shoot it, and that's your pilot. And then they'll watch the pilot, and based on what their response, and they'll test it with people, they'll say, okay, we're going to pick this up. And traditionally people pick it up on network TV for 13 episodes.
13?
Yeah.
What? I mean, why not 12? Why not 14? Okay.
I don't know. So they pick it up for 13, and then based on how it premieres and how many people watch it and the success, or based on how much they really like it and how they see it going, they decide if they want to pick it up for a back nine and give it a full season order.
So currently, I want to congratulate you because it looks like you're at a point where they've extended it. So
Yeah,
you will get
it's a huge deal.
huge deal. So you got your first season.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal. Now, before we dive into your acting career and how you got to this point, perhaps you can explain to me, like, what is the process like to get on a show like The Neighborhood? How does that process occur?
I'll dial this in for you in terms of AMRAP mentality. I'll give you the whole thing because you were talking about it in the beginning, and I was like, this is the reason, and we've talked about it before. This is the reason why I did the show to some degree. You know, I was coming off a show, off a New Girl.
Very successful, very
Which-
awesome show. If you guys haven't checked it out, you can still
Seven,
find it,
se-
right?
yeah, it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
7 seasons, huge success. I was so fortunate to have had extreme success on that show.
Because you were, I mean, arguably the main character. I mean, we
The
were
way
talking
that
about
the
this.
show, the way that the show was set up was you had Zoe, who was the lead of the show, who's coming off of like a really successful movie career. She was doing a network TV show, which was rare at the time. And the way that the cast was sort of set up was you had Jake Johnson, who's phenomenal and a good friend of mine. He was set up as sort of the grounding love interest for Zoe. And they were going to stay in most A stories. And for me, and a little bit what we talked about before, like that big character,
Yeah.
you need that third option. You need the punchline guy. And, you know, it's like the role Rainn Wilson played on The Office. It's Jim Parsons on Big Bang. It's the one who's allowed to be bigger because the other two characters are grounding the show. So, and at the time, too, Damon Wayans Jr. had played Coach on the show, but we lost him after the pilot because he was on another show that got picked up that everybody thought was going to get canceled. So we lose him. Lamorne Morris comes in and plays Winston, but he comes in the second episode, and the producers came in and were like, look, the show's about her moving in, not him moving in, so we sort of have to like put him aside a little bit, and we'll figure him out as we go along. So he wasn't really a developed character or one that was utilized early on. So at the very beginning of that show, it was truly a three-hander, which it was Zoe, Jake, and myself, and all the big jokes landed to me.
And that was your role. And so now you've taken that role into The Neighborhood, right? I mean, in a sense, right? Because I mean, you have a main role. I mean,
so I had like a ton of success early on that show and throughout the run. But the type of show that is, it's a single cam as opposed to The Neighborhood, which is multicam. And the huge difference is that the way you shoot New Girl is the same way you shoot a movie. You know, there's different setups, and it takes a lot longer. You're showing up at 7 o'clock in the morning. You're working till 7, 8 o'clock at night. Sometimes later, specifically when you're launching a show.
And is this Monday through Friday, or how does that work? When you're on New Girl,
this is Monday through Friday, and the hours are long. Specifically in the beginning too, when your writers are trying to find it and they're asking you to improv and open these scenes up, and by the end of season 1, you're like, how can we possibly do that again?
Right.
Like the pace of it was insane.
Because would you let's just take New Girl, and then I want to talk about Neighborhood, but like, would you do a scene
Yeah.
and then have to redo it again?
Oh my God, so many times.
Oh, so you don't just do it once and it's not just perfect.
Oh my God, so many times. Well, you do it two ways. There's two things that happen. Either you do the scene once and it really works, and then everybody wants you to do it again because then you're fine tuning it and like getting all this bonus stuff to make it even better than it already was. Or you're doing a scene and it doesn't work, and then everybody has to regroup and try to figure out to just get it to a place where like we're driving story and we know that it's at least working on that level. But the pace of it, I remember like our showrunner came into us and told us at the very beginning when we got picked up, he was like, look, we're doing 22, I think we were doing 24 of those. He goes, we're doing 24 of these. This is going to be a marathon. I just want to prepare all of you for that.
And this was in 2011. When you first got
yeah,
on
this
the New
is
Girl.
2011. And I was like fired up and ready to go. And I was like, however you drive us, I'm ready.
But at that time, you were married?
Yes, I was
But you
married.
didn't have any children yet.
No, my daughter
Oh,
was
excuse
one.
me. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
my
your
daughter
daughter
was
was
one.
one.
But I knew, like, I was like, I know what this opportunity is. Let's go. We got through that marathon, and I remember getting to the finish line and being like, ooh,
That was harder than I thought.
I'm out. And then we had to do it a second year in a row. And I remember being like, I honestly don't know that I can do this. And what happens is, that pace, it slowed down. But towards, the back end of that series, season 4, season 5, I found myself like at a lot of moments really burnt out. And, my daughter was older at that point.
Yeah.
At some
Well,
point,
you had a son.
we had a son season
yeah.
5.
Yeah.
And so when I went into the neighborhood, or the decision to take the neighborhood, New Girl was my first big job. And that was just an audition I went on. And I was like, if I get this, I mean, it would be ridiculous, but I don't think I'm going to. But it wasn't really a choice to do that show.
Right.
It was just me showing up to an audition. I need a job.
And you were
And
grateful.
this would be an
Yeah.
amazing one.
Sure.
But it was not like a show that I chose. I would have chosen it 100 times out of 100 if you had given me that option in the beginning. But it wasn't. Now I was in the position coming off of that show where I had to choose something, and which was a daunting experience because it was not something I had ever done before. I didn't feel any different from when I'd started New Girl, where I was like, oh my God, like the fact that anybody will hire me is ridiculous, and I'll take anything.
Yeah.
So I now was put in the position where I had a lot of options. It's really a daunting task. But the one thing I knew was, coming off a New Girl and coming off that style of show, with the 2 kids, a family, with, responsibility in my life, I knew I needed to take a job that was going to, keep me at the very least, keep me in Los Angeles. But the multi-camera schedule is so much different because it's just rehearsals all week. And then you have a tape night. So it's a job that allows you to take your kids to school on some days if you want, pick them up, but you're never home later than 5 o'clock.
Really?
And
so that was a defining characteristic, that when you were coming off New Girl,
yeah,
right, you wanted to be around for that.
I really wanted to do this type of show. And because for me, I just felt like the pace of it was exactly what I don't think I could have handled the pace of a different show, because for me, I need that balance of being a responsible husband and being responsible to my family. And when you're working 7 in the morning till 8, 9, when you're like leaving the house just as the kids are getting up, and you're coming home,
it's tough.
After they get to bed, or just as they're getting to bed, it's like you're not there, or you're creating chaos. And it was not anything I was interested in doing.
So now you came off New Girl, you're on the neighborhood. This show aligns more with your lifestyle today, right? You're a different person. But, and I think obviously I want to backtrack, because how many years did it take you in acting before you had the opportunity with New Girl? I guess you started when you were 18,
let's see. I started like 18, 19. New Girl happened in 2011. So it was just over 10 years.
10 years. And so for that 10 years, like diving into the actor mentality, like the mindset of an actor, right? I don't know anything about that. Like,
I don't think anybody really does. It's a hard shift to go from, or it's a shift that you can't really wrap your head around, going from just a grinding actor to a working actor.
Yeah, but so from a grinding actor to a working actor, I mean, when you're talking about grinding, I mean, you're going on auditions how often?
I was in a weird position. Like, I was in the good part about my position was that I was going out on a lot of auditions. The reason I was going out on a lot of auditions was because people didn't know where to put me, and they thought maybe he can do this, maybe he can do that. But
I imagine that was exhausting,
the result,
right?
But the result of that was like, well, maybe he can't do that. Maybe he can't do that. But they would try me for everything.
So out of high school, right? You knew you wanted to be an actor out of high school.
I had an idea. I went to college for a year, and tried that because my parents really wanted me to. And then I came home and was like, yeah, I'm not doing the college. I'm not doing that.
And so for 10 years, you knew that acting was your path. And I mean, can you tell us a little bit about the ups and downs of that? Because I think you see, like I'm sitting here across from a guy, you know, you have a nice house, you have an awesome family. You're from the outside looking in, you're on a new show, like things are going really well, right? But
Yeah.
it took you a long ass time in this
Well, it's
career.
like, you're like, oh, it took me 10 years to become an overnight success.
Right. And so talk to me about the 10 years. So I want to talk a little bit about drugs and alcohol and how that played a role in your life, how you know, how fit, I want to talk about fitness, but I want to talk about your wife. How did you guys meet? Was the drugs and alcohol from an acting perspective? I mean, there's so much going on in there during that 10
Yeah.
years.
So, I to talk about that a little bit, I got sober in 2006. How it's sort of related to the career stuff, I don't know how much it actually affected it, and it certainly didn't bring it on, but it was because I think this is something that I've had for a long time, but or dealt with for a long time. I just didn't really want to take a look at it until then. But I think, I was like auditioning for a long time. I was getting like little jobs here and there. And I would get close here and there, but like I didn't really know why I was doing it. I didn't know why I was acting. And it was such an inconsistent business, and the work was so inconsistent, and I didn't know why I was in it and like what I was doing it for. And I remember like but the biggest job I had before I got sober was Veronica Mars, which was great. And then I got on this multicam sitcom called Modern Men, and I remember on like the seventh episode, when you're like hoping that you get a back nine or
Yeah,
they keep going with your show. It
sure.
was on the WB network, and I remember the commissary on the WB lot shut down, and I thought that's not a good sign.
No.
And then like weeks after that, the WB network shut down, and I
Oh
was
man.
like, hey man, I think this is a good sign that we don't have a show.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, if there's no network, I think we're canceled too.
Yeah.
So that show went down, and then it was shortly after that that I like that had ended, and that ended probably like in around November.
So at this time, had you met your wife at the time?
Yeah.
But in regards to your career path, you obviously, it doesn't sound like you were being fulfilled at that time.
No, I sort of was just like coasting. I was like, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was so confused. When I was young, I thought I was like, some Gary Oldman dramatic actor.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, I'm on this multi-camera sitcom, and like, I was like, am I funny? I don't even like. I didn't know who I was. And I think that's imperative as an actor to know who you are and how you operate. And then I remember we finished that show probably around November-ish, and I thought, okay, I've got some money now. I guess I'll just like kind of hang out because there was nothing really to do at that point because I
Yeah.
finished the show. There wasn't any other show to be on, and like pilot season doesn't ramp up until like mid-January, February. So I thought I'll just hang out and party for a while and see what happens. And then maybe I'll like sober up in January. And I remember I tried to do like the New Year's Eve thing where I was like, first of the year, I'm
You're
not
done.
drinking.
Right.
And then I don't know, man. I woke up on like the 17th
Of January.
Yeah, and was like, whoa, dude, how did this happen?
Yeah.
This is like 3 weeks after the fact. Maybe I should take a look at this. And then it became one of those things where I was like, you know what? I'm only going to drink on weekends. And you're like, well,
Does Thursday count?
yeah, does Thursday count? And then Wednesday's in, and then you're like, definitely not Monday. But Sunday sort of bleeds into Monday, and then you're like, I guess I'm left with Tuesday. Fucking hey, let's just drink on Tuesday too. And then you're like, this is the whole week. And
And at the time, was your girlfriend? I mean, or your
Tess and I my wife and I had like been talking, but we were not together at the time. I was sort of off on my own in like Problemville, and And at some point, it was March 24th of 2006. I just like had one of those nights where I was out till God only knows when, and just had a very clear moment. And I'd had these before, but this was the clearest one, where I just said to myself, like, if I can make it to the morning, uh, like if I don't die, uh, I'm gonna go get some help. And then I did. And then, I certainly didn't do it on my own. I had a lot of help. But that then started a real path of me coming to terms with who I was and what I wanted in life and why I was doing certain things in life. And everything really became clear after that.
And then I imagine after that moment, did you start seeing success in all areas of your life?
No.
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 Oh, I was expecting you to say, yes, I had this epiphany.
No,
I married my wife. I had a very,
No way, man. Well, what happened was, I had gotten sober, and I thought, do I want to continue? First, I was like, do I want to continue acting? I really didn't know. I was like, I don't know why I was in this in the first place. Am I doing it for the right reasons? And if I truly love this, I will continue to do this.
Yeah.
Then my wife and I, she was not my wife at the time, but like we started talking, and we slowly started like, I had moved back in, and we were talking and slowly starting to repair that relationship. And I remember thinking, look, I was so selfish for such a long time in our relationship that I am now going to just give you everything. And that was sort of the mentality I took with her and kind of with life at that point. I mean, there was a real part of me that felt like this is a second opportunity of life. It's no longer about me. Let me just give as much as I possibly can.
And this was in 2006.
Yeah. So I was, Tess at the time worked at the same network that shut down, the WB network. So she was trying to get back up on her feet. So I was like, while I'm trying to figure out if I want to act at this point, and I remember I tried to go back to an acting class like 3 or 4 months in, and I thought, let's give this a try. And I honestly could not talk. They gave me a monologue to do. This woman was so nice. This woman, Leslie Kahn. I asked her if I could come to this acting class, and she goes, yeah. I told her what was going on, and she goes, there's no room, but I'm gonna allow you to come back because I understand your situation. I go, thank you so much. So I get there on the first day, and they're like, they go, do a monologue. And I go, I can't do it.
No.
And I honestly,
you just froze up.
I was like, I'm not ready for that. And they're like, well, that's kind of part of the class. I go, not for me. and I backed off. And then there was a part where they were like, they gave us scene partners, and they said they have to make a commitment to rehearse with your scene partner. And commitment was a new word for me. It was a very important word. And it was like, when you commit to something, you fucking do it.
Yeah.
And I freaked out. I didn't think I could. And I remember I was like sitting outside my scene partner's house in my car, and I called Leslie, and I go, I can't do this. And she goes, what do you mean? I go, I'm here. I'm just letting you know, like I came to the rehearsal, and this is not going to work. I was too scared. So I backed out, and she was like, okay.
Left.
I left the acting class. I didn't know what I was going to do. At that point, that was the closest I got to like, I don't know if this is happening at all.
So how'd you overcome that?
So I just like hung out, and I stayed sober, and I was at the time the best boyfriend I could be, and just tried to like become a human being. And
because you had been living in this alcohol, drugs, etc. for so long.
Yeah, it just was like, I don't want to say it was like fully that. It was just, I had lived in this very cloudy existence where reality was not something that I was necessarily connected to.
So how did you come back to reality? How'd you come back to acting?
Slowly, man.
But how'd you get, because now you, so.
But it's like anything. It's like, this is my new thing. Where like, you just, and it's funny you had Fraser on, and I'm like, I was thinking about Fraser the other day. It's hard work pays off for sure, but over time.
Yeah, it's consistency over time.
There's no like quick thing. It's not like, oh, Khalipa got real good at CrossFit quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you don't get on the show that you're on now without a lot of dedication for
And
a
a lot
long
of
time
failure.
and a lot of failure. So you failed the acting class. Shame on you. That your partner was waiting in the room. And
She's still waiting, man.
She's still waiting. But then you got back on your feet, right? You developed your relationship, and then you guys ended up getting married, right?
Yeah.
Before New Girl?
Yeah,
or
yeah,
after
yeah.
New
So
Girl?
like much later, I'd say a year in, I started auditioning again, and I got like a little job. I got a little job on the OC. I played young Peter Gallagher, and it was like a tiny little job for me, but it was so important. And it was like, okay, I think
It
I
was a
can
nice
do.
stepping stone.
It was literally like 5 lines, but I was like, I think I can do this, and I'm enjoying it again.
Right.
And then did some work on Ugly Betty, and everybody on that cast was so lovely and great, and like I like quietly took a few of them aside and was like, I'm like really scared. And they were all so great.
How does that dynamic work? So when you're on these shows, again, I don't know much about these shows, but when you're on the back, like, how's the atmosphere? Is it good vibes? Is it bad vibes? Depending who you're with? I mean, how does that work?
It's mostly good vibes. I mean, man, you got to be a real asshole not to appreciate the fact that you're like working on a TV show.
So most people are super cool.
Yeah, totally.
And so, you talk about how after New Girl, you really didn't want to do the marathon anymore. You wanted to kind of do for lack of a better term, the 9 to 5. So you could go ahead and take your kids to school, pick them up. And with your wife over the years, with 2 children, you have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And you were on New Girl, and now you're on a new show, but you were on New Girl for a long time. How did you overcome that with your wife? What kind of things did you do to?
Well, we understood the opportunity of New Girl, and
she was okay with that.
I mean, anybody would have been.
Right. And so you had to kind of make a little bit of a sacrifice with
because it
family
wasn't
time.
just like me running after some sort of acting career. It was both of us. I mean, we were in it together, and that came up, and we knew exactly what it was, and we knew exactly what it was going to be, and it was, and that schedule was our schedule.
So when you say you were in it together, I mean, you are and you aren't. Like, how do you guys come up with, like, that's really cool that you say that. Like, what I mean by that is, like, when I think about our business and our gyms all over the world, it's my wife and I are in it together, right? She helps in some of it, but we're it's a team, right? And is that the way you're looking at it? I mean, literally, like, when you are successful, she's successful. When she's successful,
yeah, I
yours,
mean,
like, you know what I mean? Like, it is from when you guys got married till today, is everything that you do, you feel like it's literally her and you doing it together?
100%. And now
Yeah.
now it's me, my wife, and my 2 children.
Yeah, it's cool.
I mean, that's every decision I make.
Every decision you make, you take into account the effect it'll have on everybody. But ultimately, it sounds like your wife is extremely supportive of your career path.
Yeah, totally. Look, there's jobs that come because there are so many different opportunities that come along. We were talking about this recently. It's like there are certain ones where we're talking about, like, how do you make a decision? Because decision is difficult. There are certain opportunities that come along that are just not. New Girl was not a decision. It
had to happen.
It was, of course.
Yes.
There's no thought process. That's where you're going.
Yes.
And that's sort of the way that you want to do most things. I mean,
Right.
where you take decision out and it just becomes an of course.
Right.
The Neighborhood was difficult because that was definitely a choice. One that I'm so unbelievably grateful that, like, I had such a great support system that helped me make.
Now, when you finished New Girl, and did you sit down with? I imagine your daughter is a little bit too young, of course, but with your wife, did you guys sit down and say, "Hey, what are our goals as a family? What are we trying to accomplish? And does this show, The Neighborhood, align with that?"
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was difficult because you don't know what's going to come a month from now or tomorrow or whenever, and that makes the fear or anxiety that relates to a decision that you might make that could result in the next however many years of your life,
Yeah.
a rough one.
But you make the best decision you can with the information you have at the moment, right?
Totally. And I think we took fear out of this one which is always the right way to do it. And it had everything that I had always wanted in an opportunity, and we just joined up.
So you seem like you're in a really, really good place. Before we dive into how fitness plays a role in your life, is there anything that through your struggles as an actor to get on to premiere shows, to get married to a woman that you're still with so many years later, to overcome addiction, looking back at your childhood, looking back on what you've had to overcome over the years and not going to college, not finishing college, right? There's been a lot of quote to the norms, some failures, right? Like going to,
Oh,
but
totally.
but you've overcame those, right? Like, so looking back on all your life experiences, would you take back, like looking back on it now, what kind of, in perspective, are you glad all these life experiences occurred? I mean, and what what are the big takeaways for people who are listening who might be in the exact same situation you were in 15 years ago? What advice would you have for them, and what have you learned through those failures?
Yeah, like I'll talk to some people like, well, I'll go to. I've been to a couple colleges and talked to college kids, and the one thing I try to tell them, is that the best thing you can do is just be comfortable failing. If you can get yourself to a place where where failing is where failing is more comfortable than success, then you're right where you need to be.
Because I imagine you've been shut down. I mean, how many auditions do you think you've done?
Jason.
I mean,
Jason. I think now, luckily, because of I was unavailable for most of the time I was on New Girl. Anyway, previous to before New Girl, I think there was nearly 1,000 auditions.
And how many did you get?
I mean, 4?
4?
I don't know. So it's like something like that.
4%.
I mean, the percentage was ridiculous.
Yeah. 4 out of 1,000. I mean,
but
even,
I can tell you this.
1,000.
Here's what's interesting. I can tell you 99% of the jobs I did not get. I can tell you why, and it was mostly because I tried something that I know failed. Like I specifically made a choice, and it did not work.
And are you referring to you as an actor?
Yeah.
So to kind of summarize this for people, your failures weren't just because what was in your control, right?
Was my own choice,
right?
And
was
they were
further
dumb.
knowing who you were well, because you didn't really know who you were as an actor, right? You didn't really know who you were as a
totally,
person.
and I was just trying things out. But even like there was a strong period where, and this is right before New Girl. I'd gotten sober at the time, and probably like 2 years before New Girl, I had what the pilot season is where they like have you come in and audition for all the new shows. And I was testing, which is the last step before you get put on a show like that, which is a big deal. Was testing for so many different shows, which means I was getting to the very last step where it's like you come in, you read, they call you back, then they call you back again, and then you're on like the testing process. And I'd gotten up to that stage for so many different shows and not been picked at the end.
At that point, how many people, just to give perspective, let's just say it's a character. You have 1,000 people try out?
I don't know. Everyone's different.
But it might get down to 10 people.
Yeah, 10. At the very end, at the testing process, you're down to like you and 2 other guys, you and 3 other guys.
Wow.
It is what it is. But like to go through that a bunch, but I got to a point where it was either I'm doing something right and I should feel good about it, or I don't think this is ever going to happen because I keep getting so close, and it just every time it fails.
So could you attest a lot of that, where you were trying to make yourself something for a role that you felt like they wanted instead of just being who you are?
No, there was a lot of times where like I said, there was a lot of times where I would go in and I'd make a choice and it was a dumb one. And I'd be like, now I know why I didn't get that job. There were other times where I like fooled them and I knew I was wrong up to the very last beat, and then
they finally caught on.
I mean, and then they would tell me why I wasn't getting cast, and I'd be like, yeah, I knew that the first time I read it, but I thought I could fool you, and I almost did. And then there were some where I straight up was like, I have no idea why I'm not getting this job. But the interesting thing is, every time I got a job, I didn't know why I got it either. There was no reason. There was nothing I did differently.
So you put in the hustle, you put in the grind since you were 18 and acting. And, I want to talk when you made this shift. So you're on New Girl and you're working these long days.
Well, the shift, let me tell you, right before I got New Girl, I was done. My daughter was 1 years old, and I had made it. I wrote an email to a friend. I called a friend of mine and was like, "Hey man, I think I'm gonna quit acting." I was like, I don't like this life. I'm not enjoying like running around on auditions. I certainly am not gonna get to a place where I was really close, where I was like taking care of my daughter and like bringing her to an audition. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is not the life
It's
I
a tough
want.
life, right?
Yeah, it felt selfish, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not enjoying this. And he goes, and he was a producer. He was a guy that I had auditioned for many times, who had tested me for like 4 different shows. And I said, I need a job on a show that you're working on as like, an assistant or a writer's assistant. And he goes, I really don't want to give you that job. I go, I hear you. I understand what you're saying is nice.
Right. But I
I
need this
need you
job.
to give me the job.
Yeah.
And he's like, hold off a beat. We're not in production yet. I really don't want to give this to you, but just like, please, like, give me a minute. And I was like, I just want you to know that I'm being serious. And a month after that, I got New Girl.
From him or from somebody else?
No, from somebody totally different. But mentally,
You had checked out.
I'd given up. And I think oddly that helped me in a very real way.
And so you have a daughter, you're married, and now how did fitness start to come into your life, and what have you seen from that? Because for me, fitness is something that's just a part of my everyday. It makes me feel better. It's a stress reliever.
Yeah.
It allows you to wear short shorts on the neighborhood and
Yeah,
feel,
which Jason like came in and goes, we got to work on your legs.
Oh, come on. No, they look good. They look good.
Bullshit, that's not what you said, man. You go, your legs. I go, every other normal person was like, hey, man, not bad. First thing Khalipa says when he walks in, oh, man, we got to work. We got some work.
We got to work those quads. No, I'm just kidding. So,
what's your
when
squat
did fitness,
program?
Yeah, with my squat program. When did fitness start playing a role in your life?
So I had always been a runner. I was like cycling for a long time.
Yeah.
Loved it. But I would always get bored at some point. I would like run it to its very end and be like, what am I doing here? And then, so we had my first child, Lily, and this is 2010. And my wife, who had gotten a new job right when we found out we were pregnant, was pregnant throughout the first 9 months or 8 months of this new opportunity for her. And she felt sort of held back the whole time she was there. And I remember her saying over and over again, when I get back to work and I'm not pregnant anymore, I'm going to light that fucking place on fire. And I was like, I know you are.
Yeah.
And so
by the way, I love the way you talk about your wife. I love the way you get all fired up for her.
She took her maternity leave.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I got the kid. No one's hiring me as an actor. Don't worry about that. Nobody wants me.
Yeah.
You go kill it. I'm going to take care of Lily. Go do your thing. I need an hour a day. Give me 1 hour a day in the morning to go work out. And they had opened up a CrossFit gym that was right down the street from us. And I knew that if I was going to take that hour and go to 24-hour fitness,
you wouldn't get as much bang for your
buck. I wasn't going to do anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is going to be miserable. And I called a buddy of mine who was in NorCal, and he had started he knew a little bit about it. And I remember like last time I was up there, he couldn't hang out because I think he was trying to get certified at the time. And this is like way back then.
Yeah.
And I go, hey, I was like, hey man, what do you know about CrossFit? And he goes, it's super intense. You'll love it. And I go, okay. So I went down the street. I went to CrossFit Hollywood. And it was like Andy Thompson.
Yeah.
JP was down there a little bit after I got there. C's, like all those guys. And that's where all those guys started. And I remember going there, and I couldn't do a fucking thing. I mean, not one thing. And I was banded pull-ups. I mean, I think we did Fran, and this was back when like we were doing main site
Oh
stuff,
yeah, old school.
and and the workouts were like a bat to the face if you didn't know what you were
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, yeah.
And like, so I remember doing Fran, and I think I got capped out on 20 at
Oh
20
yeah, my
minutes.
first experience with it was very similar.
Yeah, I mean, just
But
ruined.
but what you liked about it was the fact that in that hour that you had, right, where your wife was watching Lily, right?
Yeah.
You were able to get like peak like the most you could out of your time.
Oh my God.
You were AMRAPing the hell out of it back in the day.
Well, yeah, totally. I was going, and I knew like I love being really bad at stuff
Yeah.
because there's so much room to
Yep.
grow.
Yep.
So I go, oh man, I can't wait. And I was really surprised that like I I mean those couple months with while Tess was pregnant and I wasn't working out, I'd let myself go in a pretty decent way. And I remember being like, holy shit. I knew I had endurance. I knew I had to get that back. Strength was something new to me. So all of a sudden, like, you're getting these results very quickly. And like, you do like the first 3 months, you're like, woo. 6 months, you go, my body has
Yeah, you're
changed.
feeling good.
Yeah. And a year in, you are feeling like genuinely powerful
Yeah.
and standing different. And you're like, and I fully accredit like a lot of that to the way I approached auditions and to the way I was walking into a room
Huh.
and the way I was carrying myself as a human being.
So, okay.
Because I think it fully changed the way that I think my physicality was so different
Yeah.
and it had an effect on me mentally as well.
And did she start seeing that in you?
No, she didn't care.
No. She didn't say,
She
oh,
wasn't, she wasn't interested.
And so you're out there, you're putting the work, you're strength training, you're doing your thing, and you believe now. So would you say that might have catapulted? So that amongst many things, like we talk about the psychological component, right? Like,
Oh,
you're
I
just
think
going
it's
in there, you're just
everything, man.
exhausting yourself. You're overcoming adversity through these. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So like, those first couple years for me were so much fun. And it was just like, let's run it out. Let's like do all the dumbest wads
Right,
possible, like
right.
the hardest ones.
And this is you got New Girl maybe like 2 years after you found
1
basic-
year.
1 year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like, it was just let's see if we can do 300 burpees. It was just like all that crazy shit.
Yeah. But now how have you evolved now? Because I imagine.
Well, so now it's much different.
Yeah.
The second kid killed me.
So,
But what happened is like, and it was so much, those first couple of years were a lot of fun. And you were like, just grind. It was like, okay, if like you couldn't walk for 2 days
Yeah, of
afterwards,
course, yeah, of
I could do
well,
that.
yeah, at this time,
Like,
you were,
I'll just do Karen twice in a day.
well, you were also 27, maybe?
No,
Or
I was 30, 31.
30, 31.
Yeah, but I still had like, the shift happened at 35.
Yeah, and now, I mean, there's a shift.
There's a very real shift. And well, what happened to me was, I think what really happened to me is without me being able to recognize it, I was forced to deal with the fact that I'm not a professional CrossFitter. And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people to come to terms with.
Oh, it's a very hard thing for a lot of people in terms
yeah, totally. And then I remember I was doing this job. I was doing American Horror Story, and I lost a bunch of weight. And I did it all like at the gym, and it was just a lot of running and cardio. And it was no strength training. And then once that job was over, there was like mentally, I thought I could get myself back into what I used to be.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, we had just had our second child. And I had to come to terms with the fact that I could not do everything that I used to do. And there were a couple moments where I'm like, ooh, I think you pushed it a little too hard.
Yeah.
Or like, ooh. And I think like these past 2 years for me, specifically this last year, and like the reason why I talk about doing like the neighborhood and the style of that show and what it means to me mentally to be a part of that show and to be responsible with my family. It's like the same thing with the working out. It's like I have learned how to, and this is what I loved about watching you guys. Like you and Rich, when you and Rich were like at the top, the thing that you guys introduced to CrossFit, I feel like, was pace. Because you would watch videos of you guys doing workouts, and where mentally you used to go, I'm just going to go as hard as I can into this. You guys would like breathe through these workouts, specifically the AMRAPs, and just blow people away. But what was so interesting was when you would watch it, you guys aren't moving fast.
Yeah, it doesn't, especially Rich. He's excellent at this.
Yeah.
Is that he starts pacing off other people. And the way I like to look at that, not to go way too CrossFit-ish, but is that if you could develop your capacity to be like a Ferrari, then a Ferrari at 80% is just, a Ferrari at 200 miles an hour is just cruising.
Yeah.
But a Civic at 200 miles an hour is at the top end. It can only stay there for so long.
Totally.
So if you could train your capacity in all areas, which is I think what you're alluding to with the neighborhood.
Well, it's how do I pace my life?
Dude, I love that.
How do I pace my life?
It's like you're crushing AMRAPs throughout your day where you're focused on different things, but you're crushing them at an appropriate pace for what you're doing today. Like, dude, if you go to the gym and you get after it, I'm sure you do, but you might not be getting it after it like you did 7-8 years ago. And that's okay.
No,
you're at a different
totally.
pace in your life. You're still fitter than 99.9% of the population.
Yeah. I mean, my legs look like shit, but it's okay.
Yeah. But at least you're able to jog on the neighborhood without being so sore that you can't move. Right.
Yeah, man. Or like, I feel like my kid runs up to me. I have no problem throwing him up in the air.
Dude, and there's so much power in that. Fitness should never be an inhibitor. It should be it should just enhance your life. And I think, dude, I've never heard anybody reference like that. I think that's such a cool thing to show you how you were a guy for so many years who kind of had some extremes, right? Like
all over the place.
Yeah,
so like finding the middle for me is a really difficult thing. But when I live there, my life is insanely good.
You're right.
And I feel present. I feel available to people. I feel most efficient and I feel able to give to people. It's like, that's where I want to live. And when I was on New Girl, the problem was, with these hours and the pace of that show did not balance my life in a way where I felt like I was efficient.
And at that time, that was okay because it became a cornerstone and it forever, right?
Yeah, totally.
But now, right, you're doing everything well instead of trying to do something, crazy.
Yeah,
and then you have sacrifice.
It's also important to know too, like while that was happening on New Girl, I was aware of it.
Yeah.
So it's like when you're aware of it, it becomes easier because you know what's happening.
So do you take a step back for a minute, like quarterly, yearly with your family, with Tess, and just say, hey, where are we at in terms of now you're at a great point because you could have these different balances. I'm sure maybe her job is kind of maybe excel a little bit and you need to support her in different ways, whatnot. But do you guys come together and talk about how, hey, this part in our life, like we're at a great place right now. Like, do you guys ever express that gratitude?
I mean, that's every day. That's every day.
Every day.
Every day. I mean, that's an everyday experience.
Dude, I got to tell you, man, I don't know. We've been talking now for pretty much an hour because before this podcast started, and I just think it's fascinating that you could find so much. Your life has just transformed so much, man. I mean, it's just awesome.
Crazy.
To see.
But like, I remember, and we probably have to wrap this up soon, but I remember when I reached out to you originally, and the first time we really touched base was, I think I had like maybe run into you at the games once. I remember like Barbara was a fan.
Yeah.
No, but this was earlier.
Oh yeah.
This was like when you were competing, and I think Pat Barber was like competing too, and he was like, "Oh, that's Schmidt." And like I think I said, "What's up?" But we really connected when you announced what was happening with Ava online.
Yeah.
And
we should talk a little bit about that.
And I remember, and I thought, I had watched you compete for so long, and I had always had like there was no place to like talk about CrossFit, and nobody ever wanted like I was like having these discussions in my head about shit, and I remember you on the podium with both your kids, and Rich like standing just above you at number one, and
Thanks.
But from my perspective, I was like, let me explain to you how much harder it is to do what Jason's doing with those two kids and Rich with no responsibility at the time, like just like running it.
I think
and then
that year, I think he might have just adopted Lakeland
Yes.
like a month before.
No, totally. And then the next year he backed off.
Yeah. And then the next year he went team, and now he has 3 children.
No,
But yes,
I know, but
yeah.
I remember being like, to do what you did with those while you had those two kids and a business and everything else. I'm like, I honestly don't know, like the pace that you must have been running at that point
Dude, just embrace that AMRAP mentality.
was
And
was
still do-
insane.
and still
So
doing it today.
to see you make that announcement online affected me so deeply as a father that and knowing, like, just having some sort of context of what you put in, I was like, I felt like I needed to just reach out in some way. And then you think to yourself, well, like, you want to say, hey man, if there's ever anything I can do.
Right.
But then I know he's not going to ask for anything.
Well, so oddly enough, so your support's been incredible. So the biggest thing you gave us was with Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah,
And
totally.
So what Max did for us, Ava was, got diagnosed. That was obviously a rough night. And a couple months into treatment, things were going really bad. And, she has no hair and it's just struggling. But I remember, she was a big fan of Gordon Ramsay and his cooking show, like with
Yeah.
the children. And you and Fox got us to come out. They'd put us up at a hotel. And
Well, first I remember,
you had
first I had the guy from Frozen,
yeah,
Olaf.
you
send
had
you a message.
Olaf send
I
us-
texted Josh Gad and I
Oh
said,
my God.
his daughter's name is Ava too. So
Dude.
I wrote him a note and I go, listen, my friend's daughter just got diagnosed with leukemia. Her name is Ava too. I'm writing you this email. You need to send me a message as Olaf right now, or else I'm gonna post this email on Twitter and say that you didn't respond.
Oh, no way. Dude, well, he sent
And
it.
so he said it so quick. He was like, "Oh my God."
And Ava loved it. And then for Gordon Ramsay, I think in life, we work hard, and I think it's cool to give our children experiences. That was an experience that we would have never been able to have if it wasn't for you. And it really put a smile on her face. And since then, right? We do annual charity events, which you've been a huge supporter of as well.
Yeah, totally.
And what that does is it gives kids smiles on their faces for different types of things, Disneyland, different types of stuff, but that's our focus. And you were an example of someone who gave our daughter, and now we want to continue to do that. And I think, for those people that don't know you, like, you are as real as you can get. So like if someone is watching you on Neighborhood, someone watching you on New Girl, they don't really know who you are until they sit down with you for lunch or dinner or whatever. And they just realize, dude, you're just a lively, super cool dude with a really good heart, like to the core. And there's nothing I've seen that hasn't been aligned with that, man. You've been over and beyond with the pediatric cancer
My
support.
wife just went like this. Oh.
No, I'm serious though, dude. I mean it. And we really, honestly, like, I could talk to you for hours about so many different things. I just think it's so cool what you've been able to do. But for everybody who's listening, if they want to check out the Neighborhood, what time is it at? Where can they find it?
It's on ABC. It's on
Yeah.
CBS. Jason said every network. I'm confused to what
said
channel
Fox,
my
I've
own
said,
show's on now.
CBS.
What is it on now? ABC. We've watched every episode. What's it on?
Well, actually,
it's on
just, she
CBS.
records them, and I just watch them. So it's on CBS.
It's on CBS at 8 p.m. on Monday nights.
Okay, so Neighborhood, CBS, 8 p.m. If you're like me, your wife will just record it, and then when you want to watch it, you'll just watch it. I really appreciate you taking the time and everything you're doing. If anybody wants to find you, track you down, not your home address like where we're at, that's kind of weird. But if they want to find you on social media, where should they be able to find you at? What's the best place to find you at?
Oh, I'm on Twitter and Instagram.
Twitter and Instagram.
I'm really bad at both of them.
You're pretty bad at both of them. But
I'm not really good at it.
It's okay. You're not. It's fine. Like
It's fine.
It's fine.
You guys are great at
Yeah,
it.
come on. Well, guys, I really appreciate. Thank you for opening up your house to us, and for everybody out there, keep AMRAPing it, and we'll have you. We got to catch up again and find out how the Neighborhood goes for the following season.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna come up in February, right?
Yeah,
for
Ava's Kitchen.
Yeah, we're for sure doing it this year.
All right, brother. Thank you. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode and got to know a little bit more about Max Greenfield. For more information about Ava's Kitchen, how my wife and I support pediatric cancer, please visit avaskitchen.org. You can also visit jasonkhalipa.com for more information. Hope you guys have a great day.